Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of football, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. You're listening to the 100th episode of the Full Time Podcast, and we thank you for joining us on this historic milestone. Full Time is presented and powered by 91 Network. You are specifically tuning in to Season 6, Episode 20 on this, our 100th recording. I am your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co-host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. The Full Time Podcast is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. The Full Time Podcast is also sponsored by Sioux Sports. To check out Sioux Sports and all of their articles, announcements, and streaming platforms, including True House Media and True North Radio, visit siouxsports.com as well as Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms where public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. A huge welcome to everyone listening and watching today. This is episode number 100 of the Full Time Podcast. Gitano, a massive milestone for both you and I, our show, 91 Network, and everyone involved with the brand. First and foremost, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Scarps. It's a beautiful morning out, not too cold, no crazy snow overnight, so I'm doing quite well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Got to get out skiing this morning, and yeah, now we get to record here today on this, our 100th episode, so definitely could not be any better. In today's show, we are going to be taking a look at the following: the Champions League and the January transfer window. If anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on all platforms of 91 Network. And before we get into today's show, as we mentioned a few times already, this is a special edition of Full Time as we have reached a milestone with achieving 100 episodes on our podcast. Gitano, this is something that you and I are both proud of for a multitude of reasons, which we are going to get into, but I want to give a really cool bit of data before I swing it your way. According to a report from Podmatch.com, which used the database called Raphonic for its study, as of January 2026, a comprehensive analytical worldwide study was conducted on podcasts. And the findings of the study are as follows. Worldwide, as of January 2026, there were 2,998,047 podcasts that existed. Of those podcasts, 398,536 of them are deemed active, meaning they've been in existence for longer than 15 months and have 60 episodes or more. This means only 13.3% of all podcasts worldwide are deemed active. And regarding the infamous 100 episode milestone, which is always a big point of discussion in the podcast world, according to the study, quote, only 5.80% of podcasts reach the milestone of 100 episodes. 94.20% of podcasts and podcasters quit before reaching this point. Approximately 1,325 podcasters quit every single day, end quote. Gitano, you want to talk about odds and everything else? We have defied odds and some. I'm going to turn it over to you just to get your thoughts and thinking around what we've accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge, huge milestone personally for us both, for the network and everyone involved. It's also crazy to think that we're already at 100 episodes. I still remember the first few episodes we did. But yeah, I think, when I look at what this podcast is and, how we've reached 100 so effortlessly, is it's just never felt like work. This is just 2 friends who've been friends for over a decade, just shooting the shit, talking soccer, and we just happen to record it. But even preparing my notes, doing the editing, the uploading, all of that stuff, none of it, and obviously the show itself definitely, just none of it feels like work. It feels like this is just, just another hour-long conversation with you about soccer. We've had a billion of before we started podcasting. So yeah, I think that's a huge thing for us, that we just, it's not work. It's just, this is what we do. We just happen to share it publicly. But yeah, it's insane when you run those numbers and you look at kind of, because 100 in the grand scheme of things, 100 times that we've done this doesn't feel like a lot.
Right.
Um, but when you look at the numbers of how many podcasts and shows don't get anywhere near here, it's super incredible, and I'm very very proud of it. Again, for myself, for you, and for everyone involved.
Yeah, you said so many great things there, in which I agree with all of it, Gitano. And the big one for me, absolutely, is anytime that you do anything and it ends up feeling like work and that you're dragged to do it, it's probably time to do something else. And for me, I am the exact same as you in that this has never felt like work. This is just what we've always done. We just happen to hit the record button when we do it now. And yeah, 100 up, but at the same time, certainly doesn't feel like 100. So yeah, it's been nothing short of fantastic. And for those who might be tuning into the full time podcast for the first time, or even if you have tuned in before but don't know our history, we will give you a brief rundown of how our show started and how we got here today. This show began in the 2019-2020 season with Scott Nason and myself, whereby we spoke weekly and bi weekly about this beautiful sport. Originally, the show was broadcasted on the Game Sports Show, and it was called the Game Sports Show Soccer Edition, featuring Scott Nason and Daniel Scarpino. On November 17th, 2021, we rebranded and never looked back, as our show was named Full Time. Sadly, in September 2022, Scott tragically passed away. This podcast was just one of Scott's many great passions. After a 2-month hiatus after Scott's passing, it was unanimously decided and agreed upon that, as the famous phrase goes, the show must go on. Truly, it's what Scott would have wanted. On October 26, 2022, at 8:30 p.m., I reached out to Gitano via text message, which was not uncommon, as we had spoken regularly throughout the many years of our friendship. But this text message was lengthy, to put it mildly. In an effort to restart the show and continue the wonderful work that had been put in, it was proposed that Gitano and I take over the full-time podcast, and as of November 13th, 2022, we picked ourselves up, dusted ourselves off, and launched the first episode of full-time featuring Gitano and myself. Gee, we are on to 6 years of this show collectively, the fourth year that we've been doing it together. That's 6 seasons, 100 episodes, 12 years of friendship between the pair of us. Can you sum up for us what this means to be here, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I still remember getting that text from you and immediately screenshotting it and sending it to my sister and be like, "Oh my God, Scarps wants me to do full time with him," because I'd listened to the show previously. Um, I'm just being so excited and honored that you chose me to fill in and help you out. Yeah, it just means the world. It's even if we hadn't done, if we never did full time, we would still see each other at the field and see each other and be texting each other. But I really enjoy just how deliberately, like, we force ourselves to spend an hour together every week or other week and just talk and hang out. And it's just it's one of the most important things in my life, and I'm just so grateful for it. So thank you.
Oh man, thank you. Just the same. And again, our friendship and sort of relationship, if you like, that would continue just the same. To your point, but it makes all the difference in the world that we get to do what we are so passionate about, and that is talk about this beautiful sport that connects so many people, but also, of course, connects us. So yeah, being able to spend that hour together every week or every other week definitely is one of the best things in my life and things that I look forward to without question. And no matter how it is spun, this is a huge milestone us for here on Full Time, and it could not have been done alone. First, David McKeag, the leader at 91 Network. Thank you, Dave, for giving us this platform to collectively discuss our passion. Gitano and I appreciate you more than we can express. Of course, a huge thank you to Scott. May he forever rest in peace. And I know that today he's definitely looking down on our show and with the biggest smile on his face, no doubt about it, because he was one of our leaders at 91 Network as well. He started this vision, and we are here carrying it out. So a huge thank you to Scott, and we will never, ever forget him. And the biggest thanks, of course, goes to all of you, our wonderful supporters of the show. Thank you for watching and listening to us weekly and bi-weekly. As we always say, you are the heartbeat of our podcast. Gee, my personal thanks to you, my friend. If I had to show anyone the true meaning of friendship and what family means to me, you would be one of the very first examples that I would point to. So thanks for all the amazing memories over the years, man. And as far as I'm concerned, this is just another piece to this amazing puzzle that we've continued to build. So thank you very much, brother.
I'm going to take all that thanks you just gave me and turn around and throw it right back at you because without you, I wouldn't be sitting here in this spot. Yeah, I just thank you so much. I love you. This is one of the fucking best things I've got going in my life. I'll censor that. um, Thank you. I love you. Uh, let's get rolling.
Love you too, bro. And just like that, we absolutely will get rolling. Without further ado, Gitano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today for the 100th time on Full Time, let's kick off. We get today's show started with a final look at the January transfer window. As of Monday, February 2nd, the January transfer window officially closed. We will now get into all of the final deals prior to and on deadline day. The following transfer market news comes from The Guardian. First, it's Jeremy Jacques, who goes from Rennes to Liverpool for $60 million. The Reds confirmed the deal for the French U21 centre back, who will spend the rest of the season at Rennes before joining Liverpool in the summer. It's not a signing for now, but a signing nonetheless. Liverpool get a highly rated defender in. Start us off.
Yeah. I mean, it's always tough when clubs make these signings where the player stays and doesn't go right away because you really don't have much to go on in terms of immediate impact at the club. But I think it's a good signing for the future. Obviously, they're preparing for kind of a post Van Dyke era. So yeah, I think it's a fine signing. Just until he's there and playing, it's really hard to say too much. But it looks like if the reports and the scouting reports are all kind of accurate, it looks like it should be a good signing for them.
Yeah, it certainly looks it, and they also have the young Italian center back that they signed in the summer. I can't exactly remember his name at this moment in time, but you almost wonder if that's going to be the partnership in the future that's going to take Liverpool, being the club that they are, forward. So time will tell, but seems like they got definitely a good one in the door come the summer. Jurgen Strand Larsen goes from Wolverhampton Wanderers to Crystal Palace for $43 million. The Eagles announced the club record deal for the 25-year-old forward, which could rise to $48 million with add-ons as he puts the pen to paper on a 4.5-year contract. Crystal Palace doing some important business on deadline day.
Yeah, not the biggest fan of this signing, just for the amount of money they spent on him. It is quite a lot. And I know his stats for this season particularly don't look great, but he's playing in one of the worst sides we've ever seen in the Premier League in this Wolves team. So it's not entirely his fault if nobody's feeding him the ball. It's hard to score goals as a striker. But the one goal so far this season, it just doesn't look great. But I'm sure for Palace, just getting whether it's extra firepower in the door, kind of short term, or whether it's a little long term. There were rumors that Mateta wanted to leave this window but didn't. Um, it's a little bit, I would say, a little bit too expensive for him, but I don't think it's a terrible club ruining transfer. But yeah, I don't think it's the best. I don't think it's the worst.
I honestly think, Gitano, it's one of those things where Palace looked at it and they've lost so much down the past few years with Elise, Eze, Mark Gahey. Mateta's definitely going to leave in the summer. I think he was just inches away from going to Milan in the January transfer window. And Oliver Glasner, the manager, he's going to be out the door in the summer as well. So you almost wonder if, I don't want to say it's a panic buy, but if they're just thinking a little bit more long term, because you definitely don't want this to turn into a Wolves situation, ironically, from where Jurgen Strand Larsen is coming from. But yeah, Wolves, as we know, last year had a bunch of outgoings and what have you, didn't really replace anybody, and now they're in the basement of the Premier League. So you just wonder if Crystal Palace is sort of preparing for that so that they don't face that inevitable situation. Lucas Paqueta goes from West Ham United to Flamengo for $36.7 million. The Hammer suggests the Brazilian is leaving for personal and family reasons after an FA spot-fixing investigation caused significant mental strain. A very odd set of circumstances here. It's also worth mentioning that Paqueta rejected 3 other offers in order to join Flamengo. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, like you said, I think Weird probably wraps this up the most concisely with the bow. Had offers to stay in Europe. Only a few summers ago was linked with a near £100 million move to Man City. Going back to Brazil for only 35 odd million. It's weird, but obviously, I like the fact they've at least been open about it and saying that it's for his mental health, for his family, wanting to get away after that the match fixing scandal there. I think it's just, if that's where the player wants to go at that point in his career, obviously he's good enough to be still playing in Europe, had offers to play. But I think, if that's what he wants, if that's what he thinks is best for him and his family, it's just one of those situations where, yeah, that's the move he wants. That's the move he's going to make. There's really kind of no further kind of digging you can do into it.
You nailed it. And if this is for the player's mental health and this is going to be the best thing moving forward for him, it's not really for me or anybody to say that it's a bad move, a good move, or whatever the case might be. It's the move that he needed and wanted to make, and definitely just wish him the best moving forward. Ademola Lookman goes from Atalanta to Atletico Madrid for 30.3 million. Atletico boost their attacking options by signing the flying forward who had 55 goals and 27 assists in Italy. He signs his deal until June 2030. Gee, what a signing for Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, I mean, I think on paper it looks fantastic. Obviously, we've seen what Ademola Lookman has done over the last few years. Been not like kind of like not like the best tier of winger, but he's just in that tier under where he's just really solid, consistent output's been really good. I am interested to see how he adapts at Atletico Madrid. We know Diego Simeone demands a lot from his wide players, the fullbacks and the wingers, in terms of offensive and defensive responsibilities. So I'm interested to kind of see how that plays out, whether he can adapt that way. But I'm sure he'll do just fine. He's a quality player.
Yeah, and I think to your point, him being the quality player that he is under a world class manager, in my opinion, I think it'll take some time for him to adapt in the system. But I think after a certain period of time, he'll be launched on counter attacks and these sorts of things. And I think that he will find joy in Atletico Madrid's attack. Lorenzo Luca goes from Udinese to Napoli for 30 million. The towering 6 foot 7 inch center forward at age 25 makes his move to Napoli permanent after joining last summer on his initial loan. He is, however, going on loan to Nottingham Forest. Gee, a really interesting one here with a few different layers. Please break this one down for us.
Yeah, I think him signing permanently at Napoli's looked good. He had a decent season last year. Looked like a decent contributor and looked like he had a good future there. So for him to be kind of going there permanently kind of made a little bit of sense. But then to sign his permanent deal at Napoli and then immediately go on loan out to Nottingham Forest, it's a little odd. Especially his output this season hasn't been the best. Yeah, just and at 25, that's kind of an age where if you're still getting sent out on loan at 25, like, do you really have a first team spot locked down? It's, I don't want to say it's like not good for his development, because any move should be good for development of players playing, but just a little odd that at 25 he's getting sent out on loan after signing his permanent deal. It's a weird one. I think it'll work out fine for Forest if it's just a straight loan, no obligation or anything to buy. So, I mean, if he hits the ground running and scores a bunch of goals, then great. If he doesn't have a great loan spell, then he's just sent back to Napoli with just kind of his wages paid. So I think it's a little odd all the way around, but like not really terrible either way.
Yeah, it's an interesting one in which we actually don't talk too much about, that we don't talk too much about on full time, or even in the world of football in general. We don't see these types of transfers too often, especially ones with this amount of value attached to it money wise. So it's an interesting one, a little bit odd, but we'll see how it pans out for Nottingham Forest. We'll see how it pans out, quite frankly, for the player. Oscar Bob goes from Manchester City to Fulham for 27 million. It feels great to be here, says the City Academy star. He signs a 5.5 year deal at Craven Cottage and will wear number 14. Manchester City retained 20% from the sell on clause. Gee, if you could, please give us your insight for this deal.
Yeah, this one's a bit of a bummer. Obviously, he had to go. There was just no room in the squad for him. He wasn't getting the minutes he needed, and still at an age where he needs those minutes to develop for sure. Um, really was tipped to break out into the first team last season, but the night before the opening game of the season, snapped his leg in training, and he like physically recovered, but he never really recovered. He had been one of Pep's most used players in that preseason, looked fantastic, super sharp, and kind of the sky was the limit for him. It was supposed to be his breakout season. And he just, once he recovered from the actual injury, he just never really recovered that form, that confidence. So really to see him go, I would have preferred a loan. But to see him go where he's going to get minutes, especially at Fulham, I think it's great for him. City have the sell-on clause, and I'm sure if he, develops into the player that City expected him to be, they'll negotiate and they'll get him back to City at some point. We've seen it before. So a bit of a bummer to see him go, but happy for the player to go get those minutes and get the game time he deserves.
Yeah, and with those types of devastating injuries, it doesn't matter who it is, your heart goes out to people like that all of the time because usually they don't come back the exact same player, if we're being completely honest. But you just hope that he can really just push on with his career at Fulham, and then whatever happens in the next 5.5 years happens. But definitely wishing him all the best, and still a very formidable player across European football and especially in the Premier League. Mohamed Kader Mete goes from Rennes to Al Hilal for 26 million. The talented teenage center forward, who is linked with several Premier League clubs, opts for a move to Simone Inzaghi's side on a 3.5-year contract. G, your take here.
Yeah, typically we kind of look down on these moves to Saudi Arabia as just going to grab money and kind of finishing off your career. But at his age, I actually don't think it's the worst thing in the world. He'll be 22 by the time that contract runs out.
Yeah.
If he doesn't sign any extensions, he's going to spend that time working with one of the best managers in the world. And they've actually just signed Karim Benzema on a free transfer, so you have one of the best strikers in the world to learn from. I don't know how much game time he'll get. Obviously, with Benzema coming in, he's going to want to play. And because he had been killing it in I forgot what team he played for in the Saudi league before that he had transferred from, but he was still playing very well. So I'm interested to see how much game time he gets. But I think 18 years old, he'll be 22 when the contract's done. If this move goes well for him, he definitely has plenty of time to go back to Europe to play there. So I think it's an all right deal. It looks like it could. It looks like there's a way that this could be a really good deal for him and for the team. So yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I know we had talked about this would have been last year. The Aston Villa player whose name's escaping me right now, he did the
John
exact.
Duran.
That's it. And you knew it right off the bat. So he had gone out to Saudi, but again, it was sort of the similar storyline in that so young that he has enough time to, be able to go back and play European football should he want to. So time will definitely tell. But you speak about playing time. I'm pretty sure Karim Benzema in his first game bagged a hat trick. So not off
He
to a
did.
flying start. Like, that's so difficult to cope with if you're contending for the same striker position. But again, time will tell. So young and so much ahead of him. And finally, Ryan goes from Vasco da Gama to Bournemouth for 24.7 million. The Brazilian youth striker at age 19 signs his contract until 2031 at the Premier League club after 20 goals in 57 club games in 2025. Gee, Bournemouth clearly sees something here, but what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, what I see is a player that typically like a Real Madrid or Barcelona are going after,
Yeah,
especially with the output he had last season. This is I think of like Endrick and Vinicius and Neymar when like the big Spanish teams were poaching them as teenagers. Like I'm a little shocked that Bournemouth ended up signing him, and obviously they need the replacement for Antoine Semenyo, who went out the door earlier in the window. Um, I think this is a fantastic signing. I think he's super exciting. He's definitely got kind of that like the it factor, if you want to call it that, to be a difference maker for them. Obviously, it's not going to be immediate. He's very young. There's still time for him to develop. But I think it could go a couple of ways where he maybe doesn't hit those super duper heights, and it's just a solid player for Bournemouth, and becomes kind of a club legend. Or if he starts to hit those heights and they sell him on for 80, 90, 100 on million, like I think it's really win-win either way. I think this is really low risk, high reward for them, and I'm super excited to see him playing in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think he's going to be absolutely sensational, and there's such a high ceiling for this player. And I don't care what anybody says, Bournemouth's a very good team. If you looked at their league position, you'd think, oh, they're not that great, but the football that they play is just sensational to watch. And I hate when Arsenal has to play against them because it's always a tough game, whether it's home or away. I think they're managed incredibly well. So I think that this player is definitely going to come in. And to your point, does he hit the ground running? Maybe not, but in time, it's going to be a win-win for him. It's going to be a win-win for the club and a win-win for everybody all the way around. And Gitano, we did not cover each and every move that occurred during the January transfer window. Are there any that we missed that caught your eye prior to or on deadline day?
The only real, and I'm going to put it in quotes, big one was Stefan Ortega leaving Manchester City, go to Nottingham Forest for a fee under £1 million.
Yeah.
It was nothing crazy. Just kind of with the chaos in signing Trafford and selling Ederson and signing Donnarumma last summer, the goaltending situation, it just very quickly changed for him, and he ended up as our third choice keeper. Really wasn't even on the bench or traveling with the team. at any point. So a player of his quality still has plenty of years left at the top, has to be playing football. So to see him go is a little disappointing. He was a fantastic player, fantastic servant for the club. That save against Tottenham to win us the league basically will always be remembered at City. But yeah, it sucks to see him go. But you definitely want to see a player like that playing football. So I'm glad he got that move away.
Yeah, and a goalkeeper of his quality cannot, in my opinion, be a third choice goalkeeper. He needs to be playing games. So yeah, good move for him. I'm sure of it. And for me, in terms of the window, I didn't find that there was any deals that went down prior to or on deadline day that absolutely captured my attention. It was almost the rumors that were more entertaining for me, the things that didn't happen. So nothing really stood out to me on a huge front there. And now that the January transfer window has come to a close, it's time that we recap all that went down. And we're first going to talk about the winners of the transfer window. G, for you, who are the big winners or the winner of this window, the club, if you will, that did the best business?
So I want to start by saying I don't think anyone like outright won the window, and I also don't think anyone outright lost the window. There wasn't a ton of movement across the globe, specifically in Europe. There wasn't a ton of, or I shouldn't say a ton of movement. There wasn't a ton of major movement across Europe. Um, so I don't want to be biased, but I'm going to say Man City for me are the winners of the window. Bringing in Semenyo and Mark Gahey were just two huge additions and specifically with the Gahey acquisition, beating domestic rivals like Arsenal and Liverpool to them. I think that's when you look at the moves across Europe, the business across Europe, it was definitely like the best business. Was it like the greatest window we've ever seen? No, but it was the best of the business that was done.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with that. I'm also going to say that Manchester City are the winners of this transfer window. Again, did anybody, come out and absolutely grab the window by the scruff of the neck and say that we're going to sign everybody under the sun and we're going to do the best business and rebuild the squad and these sorts of things? No. But Manchester City went out and did what they had to do and made two prolific signings that you just alluded to. So them, for me, as well, are the winners of the transfer window. And on the other side of it, Gitano, who for you were the losers of the transfer window this winter?
And again, there's no terrible business being done. Really, my two losers that I have aren't really losers for the business they did. It's for maybe the business they could have done to boost themselves for the last half of the season here. So I'm going with Liverpool and Arsenal. Just when you look at the Premier League table, it's still very wide open. Well, maybe not wide open, but it's a three-horse race basically for the title. And Arsenal don't have a huge lead. Liverpool aren't too far off. I think both those teams could have done just kind of any business, whether it's just bringing in another extra body, a 5 or 10 goal striker or winger, an extra center back, an extra midfielder, just something to kind of give themselves a little bit of a boost. But again, that's not like it's not like they did terrible business in this window. It's just I think they probably could have done one or two things to give themselves just a little bit of a boost for the rest of the season here.
Yeah, and the premise of what you're saying, I actually agree with, and that's sort of where I turn my attention to for the loser of the transfer window for me, and that's Juventus. It's not that they did bad business or anything of the sort. You just wonder if, for where they are in their league position, trying to get into the top four, potentially challenging for the title, obviously being still in the Champions League, but not going to be easy for them. You just wonder if they would have done better with more than just making one loan signing, if they would have done with bringing maybe two players in the door to just bolster the squad, if you will, because Juventus is a good side, but they probably needed a little bit more if they wanted to make a proper challenge in Italy, number one, and in the Champions League, number two. And I'm also going to give a shout too. I think in Germany it was incredibly quiet this window, and I'm sure that there's reasons for it, reasons that, of course, I don't know. But yeah, usually we see a little bit more movement in Germany, a little bit more in terms of talking points. Incredibly quiet from all of the Bundesliga clubs. So I'd also chuck that sort of, if you will, all of those teams in the league into that sort of loser bracket, if you will, without again actually being losers. And G, who is the best signing of this transfer window for you?
I feel really bad when I do this and I just talk about Man City, but it's got to be Antoine Semenyo in terms of the fee they paid for him, at the output he's already given us, and the fact that he's still a young player and is going to grow and become, like has the trajectory to be like a top player. Just really when you look at there, like we said, there's not a lot of business done. I still think it's a fantastic, fantastic deal. There could have been way more deals done. I still think this would be one of the top deals. But yeah, for what we paid for him, the output we've already seen, and for kind of the potential and the ceiling that he has, it's got to be the best deal of the summer, or sorry, of the January window.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you hate to talk about Man City so much. I hate that we agree so much. It would probably make for better banter and everything else. But I can't say anything different. Antoine Semenyo, definitely the signing of the window. Already a highly prolific player who has an amazingly high ceiling. But basically every game that he's played in so far for Manchester City, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure he's scored in just about every game that he's played. So his output has just been nothing short of tremendous. And for the fee and everything else, yeah, definitely the signing of the window for me. I'm pretty sure most people across world football would feel the same. And Gitano, who for you, if any, who did you have as the shock signing of this window? One that you didn't really see coming.
Honestly, like there was just so few moves that none really like shocked me. I was more shocked by the lack of transfer activity. Seeing no real like left field deadline day signings or anything crazy. It was a pretty tame window. So yeah, no real shock signings for me.
For me, I do have one, and it goes back to Manchester City, which we've talked a whole heck of a lot about this episode, and that's Mark Gahey. And the reason why it was such a shock for me is because all of the rumors that were put around where he could potentially go, of course, as you alluded to earlier in the episode, the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, potentially Real Madrid, even had a show. There was some shows for him to go to possibly Bayern Munich in Germany. But the big thing for me as to why this was the shock deal of the window was because this summer, for somewhere in the ballpark of maybe 35 million, he basically was ready to go to Liverpool, and Fabrizio Romano gave the here we go and everything else, and then that deal collapsed basically because manager of Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasner, said, he goes, I go. You can't be doing this to me right before the deadline. And I can't really say that I disagree with him because there was no adequate replacement lined up. But then City swoop in January and they get him for like 15 million less. So for 20 million for that quality of player, nailed on England starter, the whole bit, I think it's just a shock, but in the absolute best way. If you're a Manchester City fan, a shock for everybody else in a bad way because Manchester City just got a center back for probably the next 7 to 10 years who's going to be an absolute stalwart at the back. And G, finally, what would you rate this window out of 10?
So out of 10, I would give it a 5, and that's mostly just because there was not a lot of movement. So yeah, it wasn't like there was a ton of great moves to make it a 8 or a 9. It's not like there was a bunch of terrible moves to make it a 2 or a 3. I just thought there was just not a lot of movement kind of total. So a 5 to me feels fair.
Yeah, and that is fair, and I think it's reasonable. I think I'm definitely going to be a little bit more harsh. I'm going to give it a 3, and the only reason why is because I think my expectations maybe were a little bit higher this window. I was hoping for a 5 or a 6 or a 7 out of 10 window because usually in January you're not going to get an 8, a 9, or a 10 out of 10 window. But just for how not busy it was, I was just hoping for so much more. So for me, Gitano, I am going to give it a 3. And that does bring us to the end of the January transfer window for 2026. Gee, even though we didn't have a ton to cover here on Full Time, nevertheless, it was still a pleasure covering it with you here on Full Time, my friend.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to talk about a couple City signings. A little bummed we didn't get an Arsenal signing for you to talk about too much, but I'm sure in the summer we'll have plenty of Arsenal signings to talk about.
Yeah, we can only hope. And the final numbers for the transfer window are as follows. Over 600 deals complete and over 1.1 billion spent across world football. Moving along, we will now take a look at the Champions League. Gee, the league phase is all wrapped up and we are destined and set for knockout football. How did you enjoy the league phase of this, the best cup competition in world football at club level?
I actually kind of enjoyed it. City didn't do terribly this year. We won a few games, which was nice. Finished in the top 8, so I enjoyed it quite a lot more than I did last year. But on the whole, I'm getting used to it. It's still a little weird. It's still, I'm still gonna take a couple more seasons to get used to, but it's growing on me.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if I love the format yet. I certainly don't hate it. I just don't know if I like it as much as the old format. But again, going to need a couple of more seasons to see if we can really get acclimatized to it and if we really and truly like it. But regardless, league phase is wrapped up. We're ready and set for knockout football. So I definitely am excited for that, which is imminent. And Gitano, let's specifically take a look at the Champions League by starting looking at those teams who qualified for knockout football by finishing in the top eight. The following teams will advance straight to the round of 16, and they will avoid playing in the playoff knockout phase. The top eight are Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, Tottenham, Barcelona, Chelsea, Sporting, and Manchester City. Gee, what are your thoughts on the top eight?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Spurs is sitting in fourth. That's really to me the only real talking point there is how Spurs managed to squeeze themselves in there. I mean, I'm going to say squeeze themselves in there. They had a really good league phase campaign. Can't argue with that. Um, but yeah, the rest of the teams you look at are the top teams in Europe, and obviously not every top team can fit into that top eight. Um, but yeah, I think outside of Spurs kind of fumbling their way in there, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it looks pretty bog standard. We're going to talk about the next teams or the next set of teams, I should say, that qualified that didn't get into the top eight. But for folks who are still not used to this Champions League format, the new Champions League format, if you get into that top eight, it's so wanted by managers and by teams because then you avoid having to play another two games in an already jam-packed schedule. So that's why teams are so desperate to get into the top eight. You still qualify for knockout football if you don't get into the top eight, as we're going to talk about here now, but you do have to play a couple of extra games in order to advance. And gee, there are 16 other teams who also qualified for knockout football. These 16 teams are matched up with an opponent, meaning 8 of them will advance to the round of 16, where the top 8 currently wait. Those teams who qualified for the knockout phase playoffs are Real Madrid, Inter, PSG, Newcastle, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, Atalanta, Leverkusen, Dortmund, Olympiacos, Club Brugge, Galatasaray, Monaco, Karabag, Bodo Glimt, and Benfica. Gee, some big names in there just the same as the top eight, and even a couple of potential Cinderella stories. Your take here, sir.
Yeah, I mean, you look at those first handful of teams you named, like kind of teams 9 through honestly almost 14. It's Real Madrid, Inter, PSG, Newcastle, Juve, Atletico. I'm not like I said. You can't have every single top team in the world in that top eight. Some of them have to end up in this. So you're not surprised to see them in there, and obviously they finished high up, which is good. Actually the two I really want to talk about. So Benfica, who won their final league phase game with a 95th minute goalie header to beat Real Madrid to qualify, and then actually drew Real Madrid
Yes.
in the knockout phase, which is going to be just absolute box office.
Jose
And
Mourinho,
then
by the way. Jose Mourinho,
the special one.
the special one.
And then Bodo Glimt qualifying for the knockout phase, which is wild. They had to win their last two games against Man City and Atletico Madrid, win both of them to qualify. Um, do I think they're going to go on and win the tournament? No, but what a story for them to qualify for the knockout phase of the Champions League and beat two really really top teams on the way.
Yeah, and obviously speaking to Benfica, it was interesting because they actually won that game 4-2. It wasn't like the goalkeeper scored a 3-2 95th minute winner. The word came through that they needed an extra goal to get through on goal difference because Marseille was right there on the same level of points, same goal difference and everything else, and send the goalkeeper up for an attacking phase with the free kick, and then they score. So absolutely box office type stuff, similar to when Manchester City won the league against Manchester United, even though they weren't playing in the same game. Sort of had the same sort of vibe. And then on Bodo Glimt, people forget. I definitely don't. They made the semifinals of the Europa League last season and kind of put themselves on the European football map, if you like. So the fact that they're in the knockout phase for this Champions League is something that I definitely look at and definitely love. Gee, let's talk a little bit about those teams who missed out on any form of knockout football entirely. The following teams have been eliminated from the competition and will not have a chance at knockout football: Marseille, Pafos, Union SG, PSV, Athletic Club, Napoli, Copenhagen, Ajax, Frankfurt, Slavia Praha, Villarreal, and Kairat Almaty. Gee, which teams for you were the biggest disappointments?
So I got to start by throwing my hands up and saying at the beginning of the season, I said the Dutch teams might be underdogs in this tournament, and neither of them got through. I was very wrong. I do apologize for that. Um, and then past that, seeing Marseille and Napoli not qualify is a little disappointing, specifically Napoli, considering how good they've been domestically over the last handful of years, including this season. To see them, only get 2 wins in the Champions League and crash out is very disappointing.
Yeah, and I'm going to also say Napoli, very, very poor, especially given how good they've been in Serie A the past few years, and this season specifically as well, going for the title again. But also for me, Villarreal, showcasing themselves to be a formidable side in City and La Liga, excuse me, and just nowhere near good enough in the Champions League. Didn't even give themselves a chance. So definitely poor from them. The knockout phase playoffs commence with its first leg of games on February 17th and 18th. The second leg of games will go on February 24th and 25th. In our next episode of Full Time, we will preview these games for you all. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to the Full Time Podcast on 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza and Sioux Sports. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker, easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. And be sure to check out Sioux Sports at siouxsports.com and Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we conclude today's special milestone episode, we want to extend our greatest thanks to all of you for being with us. Whether this has been your first time here or if you've been here throughout the journey, we want to thank you for your support. G, different class from you today, my friend. A big thanks to you, and of course, congratulations and well done.
And congratulations to you as well. Thank you again for just everything you do for us. Like I said, you make doing this super easy for me. I sit down. You've already given me the rundown. You run the show for us. It's you make my life very easy, very enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Well, if I run the show, you make the show. So thank you, man. And again, thank you to everybody who has tuned in, not just today, but all of the time to support us. Again, this show would be nothing without you. So a huge thanks to all of our supporters and all of our listeners. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of February 9th, 2026. In that show, we will take a look at the Carabao Cup, the Champions League, and we will also be playing a fun game of Agree to Disagree, where we debate some of the biggest discussion points and controversial topics currently in the world of football, and a few topics as well surrounding Arsenal and Manchester City. So that will be an episode that you do not want to miss. As always, we will keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Podbean, and Spaces at suitoday.com. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Full Time Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.